All right. Well, I do thank everyone for joining us today. So, we are going to be talking about composting and everything related to composting as well as recycling. And we just wanted to do a quick introduction. My name is Ashley, and I work with University of Maryland Extension here in Garrett County. And some of the programs that I work with is the Master Gardener program as well as home horticulture education. And today I am joined by Kim. Do you want to do a quick hello, Kim, here at the beginning?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kim Madigan. I am the recycling coordinator for Garrett County. I work at Garrett County Solid Waste and Recycling, the landfill location here in Oakland.
Wonderful. That's great. So, Kim's going to be telling us a little bit later about some of the services that the landfill and recycling has to offer. So, to start, we are going to just start with talking about composting today. So, again, we are recording this, and by participating, you are giving us your consent to be part of the recording. And at the very end, we're going to tell you about how to pick up your free geocomposting bin as well. So we'll do that right at the end. So make sure you don't hop off until you get all those details. So to start today, we are talking about composting, and I just want everyone to remember that composting is just the natural process of breaking things down. So we can get really excited, really caught up in the ins and outs of what is composting and how does it happen. But the one thing I want everyone to remember is that the process of composting from a gardener's perspective or from a homeowner's perspective is how we are going to capture what we consider waste products and turn it into something that is usable. And then we also want to remember that this is just the natural process that happens in nature. If you were to take a walk in the woods and scuff your foot, you would see that layer of compost there at the soil surface. Either we consider that humus whenever it falls to the forest floor, and we have leaves and that sort of thing there. But that layer of decomposition is just composting in nature. So we have to remember that when we are in our lawns and in our landscapes, if we do nothing else other than put all of our waste products in one location, it will eventually form compost. But this process of composting is how we as gardeners are going to harness this process to make it happen quicker and on our timeline. So, as you can see here, compost is going to be a humus-like material. So it's going to come from organic waste and organic products. So anything that was considered organic was probably once alive in one form or the other. So it contains carbon. And some really easy sources to start with would be things like grass clippings, food scraps, and leaves. So some of the benefits of compost is that we can use it in a garden situation to help improve our soils. So some of the ways that compost helps improve our soil is by increasing our biological activity. So whether that's through macroinvertebrates like earthworms, or whether that's through microinvertebrates with things that we can't see with the naked eye. So fungus, bacteria, some of those good critters that help to break down organic matter. It can also help increase our soil water holding capacity. So things like, in sandy soils, it can help us hold more water. Use compost for in our lawns and garden. I do want you to remember that compost is not necessarily a fertilizer, but it does contain plant nutrients. So you can see from this slide that one of the big benefits from compost is that you do get a lot of macronutrients because of the broad array of what materials are forming that compost. So whenever you're using things like leaves and dead plants, they still have a lot of micronutrients left in them that don't go anywhere. They just get broken down and given a new life. So that's one big advantage to using compost in your lawns and your landscapes. So the process, again, of decomposition is something that's going to happen naturally, and by putting it together in a certain location, ideally a compost bin or structure, that allows a good amount of air to flow into your waste products, this is going to be the best thing that to speed up the decomposition process or this natural decaying process. So by being good composters or good compost managers, we are going to balance these different inputs. So we want to keep a fair amount of air into our decomposers. We want to make sure that they have enough water in the form of moisture. And then the foods that we give them is going to ideally determine how quickly compost is made. And the last factor is going to be temperature. So again, we'll talk about this a little bit in a few slides, but things like getting your compost up to a certain temperature can help ensure that you don't have, um, you know, bad bacteria and bad viruses carrying over from year to year, as well as a hot compost pile can ensure that you don't have some weed seeds that may try to overwinter in your compost pile. If it gets hot enough, that's going to be able to kill these sources of seeds. So why do we want to compost? So I didn't tell you at the beginning, but Kim and I were able to work with the Department of Planning here with Garrett County government to secure a Keep Maryland Beautiful Green Up Cleanup grant last year to be able to offer this composting program, which has been really awesome, and we're really thankful for that. And why we wanted to do this is all because of some of the work that Kim does. And the National Composting Council estimates that the average US household generates 650 pounds of products that could be composted every year. So that is a lot of waste. And if we can keep it out of our landfills, that's going to leave a lot more space for materials that cannot be composted. So garbage handling is the fourth largest expense for many cities. So by composting, you're doing your part to help reduce these costs. So what do you need? The most important thing that you're going to need in order to compost is this crew of decomposers. So this is going to be your micro organism that you cannot see with your naked eye, things like bacteria and fungus, and that's what's going to do all the heavy lifting and all the heavy work for this compost pile. The other thing you're going to need is the right amount of certain types of foods to feed these decomposers. So if you can keep your decomposers happy, that's how you're going to get compost on a quicker schedule. So that's really going to be the key to making compost as fast as you can. I know that you can do it if you're doing everything correctly, you can take waste products and turn it into compost within a 6-week period. Most people are not probably going to be that dedicated to this cause, and that's okay. The bottom line is that it's still going to decompose and you're still going to get a good product. It just might not happen within a couple-week period. The better you get at managing all these inputs, the faster you will get compost and a usable product. So the decomposers, where are they going to come from? So we have this mantra in here that if you build it, they will come. So basically every time you add an input source to your compost pile, that's going to be adding a different type of decomposer. Your soil has decomposers on it, your leaves, your food scraps. If you use things like livestock manure, that's going to bring a whole different slew of bacteria that can help with decomposing your waste products. But the easiest way to do this is just to start with either compost from somebody else's pile or to use good garden soil. We always say that dirt is very dirty, right? And that's true. So 1 single teaspoon of soil has more than 100 million bacteria and more than 800 feet of fungal threads. So that's a lot of really, really good decomposers to get this compost pile jump started. So be really generous. And as Kim has heard me say at different libraries, put a whole scoop in there to get it started. Layer some soil in between your layers of your compost bin when you're starting it. This is going to ensure that you have a really, really readily available of decomposers ready to start eating and making compost for you. So what's the best food for your decomposers? So most of the time, this time of year, we're going to have a lot of what we call browns. So things like leaves when they're coming off the trees, um, you know, mulch, dead plants as you're cleaning up your gardens and your landscapes. All those are going to be great things to put in your compost pile. Yard trimmings, kitchen scraps, grass clippings, those are all equally good things to add. Now, here in Garrett County, we have to be careful about putting some kitchen scraps into our compost pile. We don't want to attract things like black bears. So we want to be careful of putting that sort of thing in there. Some other things that you do want to avoid, not that you can't decompose them or that your decomposers won't break them down. It's just it takes longer and it can attract critters that we don't necessarily want to be hanging out in our compost piles. So oils, fats, greases, meats, fish, or dairy products, and even unwashed eggshells. So somebody told us at one of these meetings that they actually microwave their eggshells to get rid of all the smell that cooks the eggs, and that makes sure that they're not going to be attractive to pests. You can just wash them out, break them up, and then they're fine to add. Other things you want to think about are invasive weeds. So anything that's really, really hard to kill, you probably want to avoid putting that in there. As well as cat or dog waste. So no pet waste should go in there because they could spread diseases, as well as diseased or insect-ridden plants. So if you have a plant that you're not sure what's wrong with it and you do want to put it in your compost pile, just put it in a black trash bag and let it bake in the hot sun for a couple of weeks. That's going to ensure that it's getting hot enough and dry enough to kill anything. And then you would be okay to go ahead and put that in your compost pile. Some other items to avoid would be things like lime. So we know when we study microorganisms that they like to thrive at certain pHs. One of the tips to killing microorganisms is to raise the pH and make it an environment where they're not able to live. So don't add lime, it's not necessary. And that's going to just, eventually kill your decomposers. So we don't need that. The other thing is wood ash. We don't necessarily need to add that. It tends to be very dry. So again, that's going to be a hard product to add into your compost pile because it's too dry and usually there's too much of it at one time or one addition. So use it limit sparingly. The next question we often get about composting is that should we shred our products? And the answer is probably some of them. We know that every time we take a large piece of material and we make it into smaller pieces, we are increasing the surface area. And as we increase the surface area, that gives us more areas for these microbes to latch on and start breaking it down. So as these microbes break it down, the more areas they have to eat it, the faster it's going to form our end product that we want of compost. Okay, now shredding can actually go too far the other direction though. If you make every single thing into just, make it too small, then it's going to be really hard to get airflow in there. So I like to tell people, if you can do a layer of shredded leaves with a layer of not shredded every so often, that's going to help keep your compost pile bulked up, and that's going to help to increase the natural airflow that's going through your bin. Okay, we don't want your piles to go anaerobic. That's going to kill all these decomposers that we want living in an aerobic situation, so they have to have air. Okay, the more you turn your pile, the more that's going to help with getting air into these critters and keeping them happy. Okay, so everything needs a balanced diet. We know that our body needs a balanced diet to work properly. Same thing with our decomposer friends. We know that they need a mixture of what we call carbon and nitrogen. So if you read any fact sheets about composting, you'll see something called C to N ratio. This is carbon to nitrogen ratio. And the ideal carbon to nitrogen ratio is 30 to 1. And that would be if you're thinking about 30 parts nitrogen, the other way around, 30 parts carbon, 1 part nitrogen. This can get a little complicated, but the easiest way to think about it is in a volume situation. So if you think about taking a 5-gallon bucket and filling it 3 times with leaves, and then filling it 1 time with a nitrogen rich product like grass clippings. That's what you would want to start your compost piles with. This carbon to nitrogen ratio, there's been a lot of studies done. But again, the easiest way to think about it is in this by volume capacity, how to break it down and really make it a usable way to do it. So your browns are often going to be, again, high carbon materials that break down slower and take more time. So these are some examples here on the left, things like leaves, straw, paper, sawdust, and animal bedding with manure. And again, this is things like livestock bedding, livestock manure, so cow manure, poultry manure, um, that sort of thing. Again, not dog or cat. Somebody asked us about rabbit, that would be fine, but not domesticated animals or pets. Um, the other category is greens or the nitrogen. So this is a list of your nitrogen. So vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, coffee filters are okay, but you need to shred them, make them smaller. Same thing with tea bags. That's perfectly fine. We just need to make sure that we are cutting them up so that it's not one big glob in your compost pile. Okay. A lot of these, again, livestock manures are a great way to jumpstart your pile. If you have a pile that's just sitting there and it's not really decomposing or doing anything, oftentimes you're limited in the amount of nitrogen in your bin. So it's a good way to get it started, is to add some nitrogen to the compost pile. So some more information about browns and greens. Again, your browns are going to decay pretty slowly. So a lot of times in the fall of the year, this is when we end up stockpiling a lot of our browns because we don't have enough greens when we talk about, backyard waste products. So you may have to start this fall with just saving some browns in your compost bins. And then next spring, really start to get your ratio right with adding your green products to get the carbon to nitrogen ratio correct and start the composting process more efficiently. Again, we want it to be aerobic. We don't want it to be anaerobic. If your pile is, smelling bad or something like that, that's a good chance that you're not getting enough air in there. So aerobic composting is the fastest way to make high quality compost. So this is what's going to require the stirring, weekly, every 10 days. Again, if you don't want to be that dedicated to your pile, that's okay. You can still, create compost. If it takes 6 months, then that's okay. You're still creating compost. The time schedule is really up to you and what you are going to be able to manage willingly. So with this aerobic composting, these aerobic decomposers, they are going to create heat. And with this heat is when we can say that we are actively composting. So a thermometer is not required, but temperature can be very helpful in knowing when your pile is active and when it's, when it needs to be stirred a little more often. So active composting is anywhere between 55 and 155 degrees. Again, just like you and I, we have a certain temperature that we like to work at. Our decomposing crew is the same way. So if it gets too cold, they could die, but they're probably just going to slow down. Again, if it gets too hot, they're not going to be happy. So they may need a little bit of time to cool back off, and then they'll be active again. So does my compost pile have to get hot? So good compost can be made in a pile that never gets hot. That's not a requirement. Again, the only reason that we really need to have hot composting is if you're putting something that's, you're concerned about, like a plant disease or, weed seeds or something like that. But if you can get the carbon to nitrogen ratio, then your compost pile is going to get hotter on its own than if you just are putting all carbon sources in your pile. Okay, so the bin that's sitting there behind Kim in her office, that is the geo bin that we were able to purchase through this grant. And it's kind of set up nicely, just similar to this picture. There's lots of really nice holes in the side that's going to help you with getting airflow to the sides and that sort of thing. The wind can help simulate the aeration as well, but stirring it is going to be your best bet for getting those microbes stirred up and really circulated within your pile. They tend to want to live, near the bottom where it's more moist. So it's a good idea to, keep it stirred as often as you can. Now with the bin, it's an adjustable bin. It can go up to 246 gallons, so it's pretty large. But the disadvantage is that it's going to be hard to stir if you have it set on the smallest setting. So you may want to consider just taking it apart and moving it over a couple feet and then forking your compost over into the bin again. So Kim is showing you there on the video, is that's a key. So that's what you're going to use to put this bin together and then take it back apart. They just slip right in the pre-cut grooves, and then you can adjust it to whatever size is going to be appropriate for your yard and landscape needs. Okay. So some other ways that you can get pile aeration is you can use things like PVC pipe that has holes cut in it, not super environmentally probably friendly. You can use things like dead plants, corn stalks, anything that can, help get air to the bottom of that pile and keep those microbes happy. Again, I jumped the gun a little bit on talking about turning the pile. So here's a good example where this gentleman has 2 bins and he's just taking it from one side and forking it over to the other side. So it's very doable, again, because they come apart nicely and they're very lightweight. I think that's going to be your best bet for getting a nice good turn on your compost pile. Water is the other really important element that people don't think about. Again, these microbes, they want to be moist. They don't want to be sopping wet, but whenever you pick up your compost and your compost waste products, you want to be able to squeeze, but not squeeze water out, but you still want to be able to feel some moisture in there. So don't be afraid to touch it. And if it's too wet, then it's just the microbes are going to not be able to function well. So they need moisture, but they don't want to be sitting in water constantly. So hopefully that makes sense. So taking care of your compost pile, eventually, whenever you start your composting adventure, you're going to see that when it's done, it's going to be about 1/3 the volume it was when you began. So those microbes are hungry and they're eating. So that's going to be what creates your compost and your end product. So when it's done, again, it's going to be shrunk 1/3 of its volume. It's not going to be creating any more heat. It's going to smell really nice, just like a nice soil does. It's not going to have any stench to it. It's not going to be unpleasant. You should not be able to see what you used originally in your waste product. So you shouldn't be seeing sticks. You shouldn't be seeing pieces of leaves. When it's completely compost, it'll be have a completely changed appearance. Okay, it'll be nice and dark. It'll be crumbly and loose. Again, it's going to smell earthy. It's going to smell like it does out in the middle of a forest, right? And there's something called the bag test where you can put your compost in a sealed bag for a couple of days. Whenever nothing should be germinating in there. It should be a nice sterile product. So there shouldn't be weed seeds. There shouldn't be anything that looks suspicious in your compost pile. So where are we going to put our compost bins whenever you guys get to pick them up? So the best place to locate them is, in a part sun, part shade area. The more sun they're in, the more water they're going to need to keep them moist. However, if you put them in a full shaded area, your microbes may have a harder time warming up. The other important thing to think about is putting them directly on the soil surface. You want your compost pile to be able to have a conversation with those microbes that are already in your soil and naturally occurring in your yard and landscape. So therefore, put it right on the soil surface. You don't want to put a tarp in between. You don't want to put it on concrete. You also don't want to locate it on top of a well or a water source. Not on the neighbor's, property line. That wouldn't be handy. And somewhere where you're going to have adequate space to work. You are going to have to be turning this, every so often. Again, strict schedule would be every 7 to 10 days, but most people aren't going to be quite that dedicated, and that's okay, especially as we're coming into the winter months. Another thing to think about is somewhere near water availability. So if you have to carry water and it's a hardship, you probably aren't going to do it as often as you should to keep your compost nice and moist. So we talked about that location, bin pile. We're going to skip over some of this. I will send out a copy of these slides to everyone who's registered, so you can have a copy of all this information too. There are some, nice troubleshooting fact sheets available if you search for extension sources online. The most common question we get is one saying that my compost pile either doesn't smell well, and that's often that it's not getting enough air. So increase your aeration, increase the amount of times that you're turning it, and that will usually help. The other thing is that it's nothing's happening, that it's not decomposing at all, and usually that's an insufficient carbon to nitrogen ratio. So some other troubleshooting again. You don't want to put anything in there that's going to attract any of these vermin pests. So raccoons, rats, moles, skunks. So try not to put things in there that would be attractive to them, and then you don't have to worry about it. Again, not that those things won't decompose, it just kind of makes it more of a headache for the homeowner to have to worry about those things. All right, so what are we going to do once the product is finished? So there's a lot of ways that you can use compost. A soil amendment is the easiest or the most common. The other thing you can use it for is to replace mulch in your landscape. You can even use it as a top dressing on your lawn and garden. So with that, we will turn it over to Kim to give us a little bit more information.
Okay. I'm going to try this again and hope that it works out. Now, let me just do this. Let's see. Maybe I did something wrong here.
That's right. It worked in the practice, so it's going
It
to work this
did. It
time.
did. It did. So there's something here. Are you seeing the right one?
I'm not seeing anything yet.
Oh, you're not seeing anything. Well, that's better. That's better, I think. Okay. Hmm. Anything?
Nope. Are you clicking the green share button?
Okay, I had. Let me see. Let me try this again here. All right, here we go. Share screen. All right. Recycling in Garrett County.
Looking good. All right, now let's see what happens when we click from the beginning.
So
Okay.
right there, Kim, if you
Yes.
go over to your right under, do you see monitor automatic? And right below there, it says use presenter view. You have that checked. Uncheck that.
Where's that? Where's the use presenter view? Ah, there
Yes.
we go.
There you go. Now it should be okay.
Okay, there we go. We good?
Perfect.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic. I am so happy. Okay, so recycling in Garrett County. We have, is anything happening? Okay, excellent. So recycling in Garrett County, of course, is free. We've been open since 1994, and it is available for everyone, residents and businesses alike. You can, of course, recycle curbs, well, not curbside, but recycle your recycling and take it to drop-off centers, or you have recycling at your businesses. You can have that picked up at your business, or the businesses can take it to our drop-off centers as well. Garrett County landfill, as I said, 1994 is when it was built. People can use, everybody can use the landfill, residents, businesses alike. We have a municipal landfill for dumping. this is what it looked like on the right when it was built, which surprises people because that's just as big as it was. People think it was like a big hole, but that's just as deep as it was to begin with. And then over to the left, that's just a picture of just one truck coming in and dumping some trash. And the current life of the landfill right now is 2033. However, and that's if we do nothing. That's if we do nothing at all. But if we go with a current plan, we have room for another 15 years on top of that. So that's very good news, that we can actually do something in addition to that and expand the life of this current landfill in this location. So that's very good news. So why is it important to recycle? Well, there's a lot of good reasons, really. It conserves the natural resources here of our beautiful Garrett County, reduces the need for raw materials, saves energy, and of course reduces our reliance on and the need to create new landfills and incinerators, protects our health and our environment when harmful substances are removed from the waste stream. And from the picture above, that's a very good example, of course. The swans fighting over, those are plastic rings. I'm sure you might not be able to tell. That actually might be a plastic bag from a store, but one of the examples is the plastic rings that come on sodas or some other kind of beverage, and the animals get it stuck around their neck and die, or they ingest plastic like this and they can't, of course, digest it, and that's the kind of harmful substances we're talking about that could actually be recycled instead of going into our waste streams. And the plastic ocean, I'm sure everybody has heard about. So also it creates new products and markets. And I have just a little tidbit on that. It estimates that 9 jobs are created for every 15,000 tons of solid waste recycled into new products. So that's kind of exciting. In Garrett County, we offer 7 refuse and recycling sites. 3 are on the northern end, the Bumblebee, Friendsville, and Grantsville sites. And then we offer 4 on the southern end, the Webster, Kings Run, and landfill site. Wait a second. And 135 site. That's in Swanton. I think I went backwards. There we go. Okay. And of course, when all this is done, I can answer any kind of questions that anyone has, because I'm going a little fast through this. So what kind of materials do we accept here at the landfill? I'm going to go through and I'll let you know which ones are accepted at each place, because some of them, aren't accepted at every place, but there's a lot of them that are. So mixed metal, that's accepted at every single place. That started in 1994, so we accepted at every one. Electronics, we now accept at 5 different sites. So that is a permanent program. It's very exciting. We're actually working on trying to expand that right now, and stay tuned, because that might expand here in the very near future. And then, of course, appliances, which you can recycle by bringing it to the landfill and rolling over the scales for a tipping fee, or you can take it to your nearest site and pay a $5 bulk or convenience fee. So we also call appliances white goods here at the landfill. And then I have a picture there of a refrigerator, and a lot of people ask, where can you take those? And you can take those to the Garrett County landfill, and that's the only place where you can accept those. So that's a good piece of information. So next materials we have up are the plastics. So numbers 1 and 2 plastics on the left and in the middle are accepted at 5 locations now. So I'll tell you about those, because a lot of people don't know where those are accepted. So in Oakland, we have the Garrett refuse site, Garrett Highway in Oakland, across from what used to be the Sears store, and Kings Run, Garrett County landfill, and then at the Bumblebee site on northern end and Grantsville. So they're taking it 5 different sites. We accept just the plastics that have like a neck. Okay, so that's like kind of like a tiny opening at the top. So it's easier for you to see there. In the pictures, actually on the bottom, you see there's a lid down there at the bottom. And it's, yeah, and I'm actually kind of pointing to it. There's an ice cream or some kind of container there. That would be something we wouldn't take. So I probably shouldn't have taken that picture right there, because that's not something that's good. But all those milk containers, of course, are good. And any water bottles for number 1, and soda bottles are good for that. And something new, which is also exciting, we are taking the caps on all of the plastic bottles. So that's a new and very exciting thing here. You do not have to take them off now to recycle. So you can just leave them all on. So that's a very nice thing. With aluminum cans, which are taken at every site, you just, you can crush them or you don't have to. Actually, our processors prefer if you just leave them be. So those are a very easy, recyclable to put in the can, in the recycling bin. Next up are the glass bottles and jars, which we accept brown, green, and clear. Pretty easy, not a big deal with those. The only thing that we get questions about are mirrors, ceramics, car glass, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, those are not acceptable in the glass. So just regular, glass bottles and jars. And then the next is oil antifreeze, and oil and transmission filters are new this year and last, I think. Okay, don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. And then last up are all of our paper products. We accept corrugated cardboard at all sites, office paper at 5 sites, newspaper at all sites, and magazines at 5 sites. So you can see corrugated cardboard. I can let you know that and by the picture there also, I took that on purpose, that there's shiny cardboard in that picture. All toy cardboard is fine. It's shiny and that's good. Staples and tape in it are fine. And pizza boxes, I get a lot of questions about that, are fine. You can put them in there as long as they're not ooey, gooey, crusty, anything like that, or dripping. That's all good. Office paper here down towards the bottom left, shredded paper, fine. Golden envelopes, fine. The ones that have like the plastic little envelope, plastic screen in it, that's fine. Everything, is pretty fine in there except carbon paper. They don't like to get that, but everything else is good. Magazines, that's pretty open and shut case, so you can put brochures in there, coupons, anything that's shiny or slick. And newspapers, you can actually even put paperback books in there as long as you take off the covers and put them in with magazines. So that's kind of neat. So what can you do to prevent waste? Lots of things, actually. You can buy in bulk, and that's kind of just a little picture there next to it. You can go to some of the stores. In fact, there's kind of a lot of stores around here that you can buy in bulk in. You can go to Sam's Club and get things in larger cans, larger bottles, like detergents. You can get things in cases. So buying in bulk is very easy these days. You can not buy what you don't need. you could borrow it from somebody, you can rent it. There's rental stores around here, a lot of them nowadays, actually, like the saw that's down there in the bottom. You don't have to buy it. If you're not going to use it like more than once or twice, borrow it from a neighbor or a friend, relative, or just rent it. So you don't always have to buy something that you're just not going to use more than once or twice. Buy products with less packaging or made from recycled materials. And it's going to tell you right on the package if it is. Reuse projects or products, excuse me. In the bottom right there is just an example of a sculpture made by one of our high school students where he reused all kinds of materials for a sculpture. You could reuse all kinds of things, not just to make art, but you can, you could reuse all kinds of different things, bags to go do your shopping, just, all kinds of different things you can reuse. Of course, recycle materials. That's pretty easy and what we've been talking about. And of course, composting, which Ashley already went over. One thing I wanted to tell you about, just a couple tips for the holidays, and just because we got Halloween coming up, I just did a little something here. Make your own costume for Halloween or makeup. I looked on Pinterest because there was some makeup my mom used to make this makeup, and it was all natural, and she used to make these costumes for us when we were younger. And there are some great like all natural makeups you can make for your kids on Pinterest, and they're not harmful in any way, so you can make your own stuff. And Pinterest is always a good thing you can go look at and get all kinds of neat ideas, of course, for costumes, makeup. Forgo that plastic bucket and use a cloth bag or basket or something you already have at your house. You don't need to go buy anything, of course. Recycle your pumpkins. If they're not moldy, if you don't let them sit too long, you can give them to a local farm or a neighbor or something. If they have pigs or different animals, they love pumpkin. Cook them, use them for soup. I've had this soup before. It is delicious. Save your decorations, your costumes, your lights for another year. A year after year, you could reuse this stuff. Something I'd like to share, timeline for decomposure of different materials. Paper towels, for example, are just like, they go pretty quick, 2 to 4 weeks, they'll decompose in the ground here. Milk cartons, a little longer, actually a lot longer. It's 5 years. Aluminum cans, 350 years. We're getting up there now. Disposable diapers, 450 years, because we're talking about plastics. And glass, it is undetermined. We have not come across any glass that has gone away yet. And here, just a quick little thing, buy recycled or biodegradable products. The yellow items are made from corn. The young lady up at the top, she's got a top made of bamboo. And I know now they sell clothing, they sell sheets. I actually have a shirt, a shirt that's made out of bamboo here in my office, and it is so soft. The straws there are made out of glass. They have them made out of silicone. The little piggy down at the bottom is made out of recycled electronics. And the notebook is made out of cardboard. So, I mean, you can buy all kinds of things now. I'm sure everybody knows that's made out of recycled materials. So just try to buy recycled, just try to buy biodegradable, and, use your head. I'm available anytime to talk to at this location and this number and my email address. If you have any questions at the end of this or ever need to get a hold of me, I'm available Monday through Friday. So that's all I have, Ashley.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you
Hey,
very much.
there was a question in the chat for you.
Okay.
It says, are there any plans to expand the things that can be recycled in Garrett County, like additional plastics and paper packagings, like
Okay.
cereal boxes?
Oh, that's a really good question. I was actually at a meeting yesterday in Cumberland where we were talking about a bill that actually just went into effect, where they were asking us what do we need, what is wanted, what is needed. And I told them about the things we cannot recycle here, and that plastics 3 through 7 weren't accepted. And they asked me why, and I told them because we were too far off 68, and the trucks wouldn't come here. And I actually got some contacts about who I could call to possibly get them to come here. So maybe it's not going to be as hard to get those plastics taken now, because I might get somewhere with that. I wasn't calling the right people, I guess. So
Yay, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So I might be able to get somewhere with that. And they were appalled that I couldn't get paperboard recycled here. They thought that just wasn't right. So these people came to us and said that they want to help. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can get some new things recycled here. And I'm working on
Awesome.
another deal to get another product recycled. So I'm looking into the future, and it's looking a lot brighter right now. So I'm very excited, actually.
Did you
Yeah.
want to tell them about like what you can recycle at the plastics? Like you had the little magnet.
Oh, I did. I have that sitting right out here to do that. I had a note and then I didn't do it. Here it is. Okay. So I learned that you can recycle more. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar, but when you walk into Walmart, there is a container right as you walk into the lobby. And I had always thought it was just for the plastic bags that you get at the stores. And they're a number 2 plastic. And I looked at it one day and I saw some writing on it, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, it turns out that you can recycle all kinds of different plastic in that box, and it's in both doors, both entries when you walk in there. And I'm going to read off this information. And I actually have magnets in my office. If anyone's interested, I can send you a free magnet for your fridge. And these are the things you can recycle. Your plastic bags from fruits and veggies at the store, plastic mailers, like you would send out special things through like the postal service, those plastic mailers, bread bags, your bags from dry cleaning, case wrap that you get that covers the water, cases of water, air pillows. This is a good one because you get so many when you get boxes that come to you, and Christmas is coming. So that could be really handy. Bubble wrap, the same thing. Newspaper bags, the bags that wrap around your newspaper. This is a great one. Food storage bags. So if you have, you're done using like your Ziplocs and you've reused them so many times, you can actually put those in there. And product overwrap. So the wrapping that comes like over your paper towels, your toilet wrap, wrap that comes around like Solo cups. I mean, like any product overwrap. So it takes all that plus your number 2, plastic bags. So it's really exciting to learn about all that. So like I said, if anyone's interested in this magnet for their fridge, so they remember all the stuff they can save and put in you just put it in a number 2 plastic bag and then put it down into that box right there in the lobby.
Yeah, you're
So,
getting a lot of comments in
oh,
the
good.
chat.
Okay,
So one of
well,
the questions was, could we help them make the sign more catchy? I recently realized this as well, but the station is very underwhelming. And you had talked about this at the library, the sign at the Walmart.
oh yeah, I wish I could. I met with the manager and asked him, And unfortunately, I wanted to put a sign up, and I have one here in my office right on my desk, and had it made and everything. And he said, no, they won't allow me. I asked him if I could put a sign up above it, around it, on the window, anywhere. And he said, no, I'm not allowed. But he said, I can advertise it, to anyone that wants to know about it. So I take the information everywhere I go, but for some reason, Walmart's, they're just a little funny. They said they're not allowed to put up advertisements of any kind there. So yeah, it's kind of weird, but they said I'm allowed to tell everybody.
There you go. That's perfect. I have a couple more questions for you. So one is, where to go? So Tom's of Maine toothpaste now has number 2 tubes. When might they be accepted in a number 2 bin?
That I don't know about. I can check on that. That has everything to do with the processors we deal with. We have 2 processors, and if it's okayed by them, I can do it. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them. And if they say yes, so I can take the request to them. And if they say yes, I can get it done. So perfect. I will take that to them as a request and ask.
Okay.
Okay.
And
I'll write it in my notes.
Okay. And
yeah.
Do you know if any of the rental agencies have any recycling programs or pickup for the rental houses?
Yeah, not right now. I have spoken to TaylorMade about it several times, and I think they have a little something, but it would be very expensive for them to do something like on a large scale basis. I think they do a little bit. I think that they encourage their people that come in, the vacationers. I think that they encourage them to recycle at our sites while they're here. But as far as a real recycling program, I don't think that the recycling companies really have one. I think it would really cost them a lot of money to do it. I mean, I know that they've come to me and asked me questions about it, but I think it would cost them a lot to actually put, any kind of containers in there or change the way they do things. But I do know that they encourage them to recycle at our sites, because I get a lot of calls. And then I ask them where they're staying, and then I give them directions on the closest place to go. So.
Great. How about my cat food cans are 100% aluminum. Can they be put in the aluminum bin?
No, unfortunately we cannot take them again. And that is a processor thing. They can't take them in with the aluminum cans because it's contaminating the whole bin. And that's because the people they take it to don't want them. So if I can't put them in there, I don't get paid because they don't get paid. So it's just a financial thing. It's a money thing. So that's all.
Okay. And one last question, is the plastic recycling of the bags, etc., could that be done at the landfills? Could you guys have a site there that then would take it to Walmart?
The plastic bags? What was the question? I'm misunderstanding the question, I think.
Yeah, is the plastic recycling of bags and etc., could that be done at the landfills, not just at Walmart?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's something we could probably talk about, but I don't know that I'd have the containers to do something like that, because I'd have to. I would really have to look into that and see, because I don't know. That's something I'd have to look into and think about. I really only have like one extra container right now at this time. I mean, that's all I have. So, I don't know. We'd have to buy a lot of containers to do anything like that, even just 2, one for each end. And I mean, they're like 6,000 a piece. So it's difficult. I mean, you have to consider, what you want to do first. What's the most important thing? So we're going to have to just consider everything we want to do and what we can do, and maybe what these people can help us do too. So after this meeting, we'll see if
Sure.
they can, help.
Okay, so
Yeah.
a couple more. So metal dog food cans and the metal bins for recycling is not okay, or is okay?
Metal dog food cans. They really don't like them. If they get in there, it's not usually that much of a contamination. I mean, they don't want any kind of canned anything in any bins, really. No, they don't want cans because it does contaminate it. If there's a
Okay.
couple in there, they don't yell at us, but no, it's really not wanted. No.
Okay, and do you know where Walmart sends their plastics?
Back to their main hub. They don't tell us what that is, but it goes all back to their main hub. I did ask that. So,
Great.
and they are very big recyclers. When I get their report at the end of the year, it is huge. They recycle everything. So it's excellent.
That's awesome.
It is. It's really excellent.
Okay, so they're asking, do not include like green bean cans and etc.
No cans. Not at this time. Not at this time. But that is something that has been asked for a lot. So again, that's really one of the top things that's kind of on our list.
Okay, great discussion,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you so
Very
much.
good. Very good. Thank you.
So I am going to go ahead and stop the recording. Don't go anywhere though. We